Welcome to Powering Through Life, and I'm your host, Teresa Sims. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I will discuss a special topic that is close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they have faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their life. So welcome to Powering Through Life.
Hello and welcome back to Powering Through Life. And I'm really excited about today's episode. I would like to call this person a dear friend of mine because we've developed a bond over the last few years. And I am so proud to present his story to you today. And today my guest is Daman Casabar. And Daman is from Los Angeles, California, and he's been involved in coaching and sales for almost 27 years. Wow, that's awesome. He is also certified in multiple mindset, psychology, and sales training courses, and he's helped build multiple sales companies for the last 21 years. Daman, welcome to Powering Through Life.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited we get to do this. I've been wanting to do this with you for a number of years, and you know what? Good things do come to those who wait, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And our topic today, I'm really fascinated by this, is cultivating resiliency in any situation. So, would you like to start off with tell us where you're from and what your upbringing was?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and parents originally from Hawaii. So we have a lot of family back there, but my mom and dad met in LA, and my dad was in the Air Force and raised our family there of my three sisters, two brothers, and grew up in, well, let's see, the memory's kind of jogging here, but uh, we were in the central part of LA when I was little. Went to elementary school out there, and then ended up in what's called the San Fernando Valley, which is North LA area. And anyways, was born and raised there for, gosh, until high school, and then graduated, and then just from there, came here to Utah. I've been here for the last 22 years or so, but yeah, just raised in good old Los Angeles, and kind of raised in the, as far as I think upbringing was the question you asked as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you go through as a kid? I mean, there's some kind of an event that happened in your past that led you to a certain aspect of life, if you want to call it that. So, would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was, I'll just kind of condense it here because so many things happened. And, I had a great childhood, and as far as when I was in elementary school, and, parents worked quite a bit. My dad worked the graveyard shift, so we didn't see him too often during the day. And my mom was working during the day. And so while he was sleeping, getting ready for, just getting rested for work in the evening, my mom would be working her day. So we pretty much were, as kids, kind of on our own in a way, until my mom would come home and she was busy, and my dad would kind of do the, I guess what my mom normally do before she started working full time. And so that was a little bit challenging, but there was, the way that they showed love and raised us. I mean, it was in the Polynesian culture, so there was a lot of love, a lot of strong pillars with family. It's just we didn't really see a whole lot of that growing up. And so I remember just thinking, okay, that's the norm, I guess. That's just what I have to deal with. Mom and dad have to take care of us. We didn't have a lot of money growing up too, so we struggled in that aspect. That's why they were both working the two jobs, or excuse me, my dad working the job he did with graveyard shift, and getting paid more in order to make ends meet. So I admired him, for that. And then my mom just doing the best she could. So that dynamic really played a huge factor in later on as I got into elementary school. I did well in school, and was kind of, I tell my wife this too, I was kind of the weird kid. I was into comic books, and, just thinking about alter egos, if you want to call it, things that I can become, heroes I want to become. And then got made fun of for that too, in elementary school. And then something interesting happened when I went from that and being on the honor roll, kind of doing all the things I need to be doing to be a good kid, to then getting into junior high. It was about ninth grade. So back in California, that's where junior high, it went all the way to ninth grade, and then we started high school in 10th. But that was a pivotal moment, just because I started to feel like, okay, I don't want to be looked at as the outside. And so I got caught into a crowd of friends that, got involved in the gangs, and just doing what they did on the streets there. I was where our house was kind of the divide between the really, a lot of the stuff, bad stuff that happened, versus kind of the middle class. And so we were kind of in the border there. And so I was exposed to that with my friends in the neighborhood, and then it went into junior high. And so from ninth grade into 10th grade, I got deeper and deeper into that lifestyle. And kind of going back, I was raised, I'm raised LDS in the Mormon religion, and that's very prominent here in Utah. And so a lot of values, a lot of principles that I learned, but then also feeling like, okay, I'm not, after going through the crowd and doing the things that I was doing, just feeling kind of left out, and feeling like, okay, I'm not this perfect. I perceived and looked at the families that were there as perfect, and they're doing all the right things. And in religion, you're doing all these moral things that I'm not doing those things. And so I've chose a lifestyle where I felt accepted, my friends, and again, to no fault of my parents. I mean, they did the best they could of what they knew to take care of us. So I'm not at all saying it was a bad upbringing that way. But it did cause us to, again, as kids, and my siblings, and especially myself, to just say, I need to find a group that I can be with and be accepted. And I felt like that was it. So anyways, got involved in that lifestyle, which was very much about, just, how can I describe it now? Well, I mean, it's just in that environment, it's survival, so it's, if you're seen as vulnerable or weak, or you're perceived as someone that is kind of nerdy, or whatever it is. And again, that's kind of where as I mentioned in elementary school, I was kind of into that kind of stuff. And then my friends, I remember them saying, "Oh, you're just, you're, what a dork, you're into that kind of stuff." And so I was like, "Yeah, I kind of like it." But and I'd go and read it and not tell them. And then that led to, okay, well, maybe that's kind of weak. And I don't, if I'm going to be accepted in this crowd, then I've got to walk the walk, and I've got to show that I've got toughness or whatever. Because at the times that you didn't, or you showed some vulnerability in that environment, I mean, you're beat up, you're picked on. And so I just remember getting into fights quite a bit, and getting into trouble, and just trying to feel accepted. So anyways, that was a span of, when I was 14, 15 years old, all the way up until I graduated from high school, and then really got deeper into that kind of lifestyle, and exposed to a lot of what goes on in that. I mean, we're talking just, times where we were out all the time. I mean, I was just away from my home a lot, and it didn't help that my parents were working a lot, so we didn't really see each other a whole lot. And I didn't, with my sisters too and such, and the lifestyle that I chose to go with at the time. I mean, they didn't like that, being in as religious as we are, to just say you're, like, a lot of judgment, a lot of, hey, you're doing these things. And so even though I was amongst a lot of that, a lot of the drugs, and the things that my friends were exposed to, and kind of, you know, but I also felt at the same time, though, even though I was exposed to that and I was surrounded by it, um, and try things here and there or whatever, it wasn't. I always kind of held my ground, and that's why I'm thankful for what I learned in church. Those, and from friends and people that had really good sound principles, and those things kind of came to light, as or they came to actually to my rescue, because I didn't know that those things were happening at the time. When you're a kid, you're just like, yeah, okay, I'm hearing all this stuff of blah blah blah, be good, do that, and be this perfect kid, and do all these perfect things. But there were some very valuable principles that actually showed up later that got me out of situations, namely that, being amongst all that kind of in that environment, being surrounded by those influences, the belief is, well, gosh, and you see this a lot with friends, well, or people that, hey, you're getting sucked into that, you're always around it, so therefore you must be doing it. And so I was challenged, that was a challenge for me because I felt, again, a judgment, right, by my siblings or even friends or family within the church, saying, hey, you're doing those things, you've got to be doing those things, if you're involved, if you're around it so much. And thankfully, I didn't indulge enough to get deeper into it, but psychologically and with other traumatic experiences that I had with just that lifestyle of getting into fights, getting into trouble, and being shot at several times, and having I to this day I kind of look back and I talk to my wife and to my family about, gosh, how did I survive those things? Did they even happen? Because sometimes you get into traumatic experiences, and I learned this later on that it almost, you end up, I don't know if you experienced this, was just, wow, I know it happened, and I know a lot of it. I wrote some things down, but then your mind kind of plays tricks of, well, did it really happen to
Like
that
a
extent?
dream.
And it's like, yeah, exactly, like a dream that just to tell somebody who's not maybe understanding or doesn't relate to that can just look at that and say, wow, that sounds like it's straight out of a movie or something.
Yeah.
And I was always the quiet kind of, I wanted to always stay humble. That's one thing I learned from my dad as well, is that he was, blue collar worker, just put his head down, worked in the sugarcane fields, in Hawaii, picked pineapples and all that. Just a really hard, just put his nose to the grind worker, but very humble. And so I always wanted to stay humble. I didn't want to, tell these stories in such a way where it's like, oh, look at me and what I've gone through. I was very careful with who I shared that with, because they're very sacred experiences that taught me a lot. But anyway, sorry, to go back to your question there, it was, yeah, it was around that 14, 15 where self-identity we're still discovering what that is or who we are. And I thought that's what it was. I thought it was go out, live the high life, and go out and party. And it was every day, Teresa, practically every day that I was out till 2, 3 in the morning, just getting into trouble and hanging out with friends. And and I had a group of friends that actually, despite all the things that they did, were really had my back and actually helped me live what I learned in my religion. Saying, hey, you can't be doing those things.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of interesting because they knew where I came from and what I believe in. And even though I was in that lifestyle, they were just, or if I would, hint towards, okay, well, I guess I'll, do something or whatever. And they're like, no, you can't do that. And by the way, you're going to be the one driving us home because, they're out, drinking and doing drugs and all that, and saying, you got to be the one to get us home alive. And thankfully I said, okay, yes, you're right. So thank you for that reminder. Of course, I didn't say it that way, but I said, yeah, of course, I'll be the one to do that. And so I'm grateful that they were mindful of that and saying, hey, we'll do all this stuff while you be the one to just get us through it. But yet, we're exposed to that environment. I mean, it has an effect on you
Absolutely.
regardless. So
How
yeah,
conflicted were you, Damon? Like, you must have been extremely conflicted inside, going from the value system that you had as a child and being raised that way, and yet, hiding your comic book reading and all that kind of stuff from this group, but you made the choice to be having a bit more of an exciting life, but at the same time, it must have, I would have been conflicted a little bit. Were you inside? Is that
mhm.
what was kind of pulling you apart?
Yeah, it was, I kind of think back on that and I thought, okay, no one's really home. Like, cause we, again, the way that our dynamics were with the family, we were all kind of out doing things, doing our own thing. And so I was like, okay, who do I go to? Because I don't have anyone to really go to. My dad's sleeping. He's getting ready for work. He's busy. He tried to be there, and he was there. He was a pivotal part of getting me out of this stuff too. And then my mom was always working and busy. So I always felt like they don't have time. So I thought, okay, I got to get that validation somewhere,
Mhm.
kind of getting it in my family, but it was seen in a way of, well, yeah, we'll give you that when we have time for you, but right, we're so busy in our own lives. So as a kid, I took that as, okay, I guess I'm not important then, or it's as important. So I'm going to go and talk to, I guess here's these group of friends that are befriending me and saying, hey, let's come and do these things and have fun. And I felt that kind of excitement, that exhilaration of living a very kind of, I don't know if I want to call it sheltered, but very, hey, straight edge, and hey, you've got to do these things and this and that, and seeing that in my beliefs, going to church and saying, well, I'm not that, and I was that, but now I went down this path. And so, yeah, there's a lot of conflict there. There's a lot of, where do I go and who do I turn to? And they happen to be there. And I just looked at that and said, okay, I guess wow, this is pretty exciting.
Mhm.
Because I felt like, yeah, I don't know. It was exciting, and I perceived that, and I interpreted that at the time as, okay, this is just what everyone does. This is what all the cool kids do,
Yeah.
especially the ones that are getting into trouble, right? They're kind of the rebels, and they're the ones that the girls want to be with, and who like a bad boy or whatever. And so maybe I got caught into
Playing
that
on the
too.
wild side for a bit.
Yeah, just that. I'm gonna do that because I want to be cool and I would still go to church, by the way. So again, that's a value system that I'm grateful for, is that even if I was out partying and doing all these things, it's funny because I would show up, I'd walk in at like 5 in the morning, or even later than that. Well, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and my parents are getting ready for church and family, and they're looking at me like, wait, did you just get home? Or you just got up? And I would go and I would read my scriptures and the Bible, and different scriptures I had. And it was taught, I didn't know why I was doing it. I just thought, okay, I got to do this because I noticed, if I didn't do these things, then I got cursed. Things really bad would happen.
Uh,
And I know it's kind of a crazy thing to think at the time, but I'm grateful because I read that and it wasn't registering consciously, because it was like, okay, that sounds good. And I'm reading and learning some great things and spiritual things. But then unconsciously or subconsciously, that was giving me some data, right? Some information that I was going to have to draw from
yeah.
in those circumstances.
It's fascinating
And
how
so,
that works, isn't it? When you don't
mhm,
even realize what's being planted until you need it. And then it all of a sudden it's
yes,
there, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that. If it wasn't, then again, it would be, well, what is it? And let's fill that void with what I thought it was. And so those instilled within me when I was a kid, being in church and learning, what I learned in church, I'm grateful for, because again, it did come to my rescue, and then it's affected me going forward in my life too. And it helped develop that resiliency, that I can stay centered on something. I can have an anchor with something, especially in an environment where that was changing. It was so fast paced.
Yeah.
I needed that.
You must have been had to be on the edge all the time, like on the sitting on the sword edge all the time, living in that group,
Yeah.
never knowing what's going to happen next. And yet here you have security over here with your family, but it's still not giving you the I understand what you're saying. Your family was your dynamic, but it wasn't giving you everything that you needed to um, explore to be yourself.
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
made the choice of going that direction.
Hmm.
And how did you get out of that direction, Damon? What happened?
Well, it was, a series of events, when I was, well, I got kicked out of my house when I was around 18, and like 17, 18 years old. And that was a really pivotal moment because I realized, okay, this is real. I got into an argument with my mom, and about using, I can't remember I think it's using the car to go out, and she wouldn't let me use it. So I just blew up and got really upset, and left the house and lived for a few months or more with friends. And that was a bad decision, because that was just, they were doing partying at the house, and I was just, so, it was something like that where I realized, okay, I this is crazy. It's getting way too crazy, but I still was confused. Like, well, this is still the high life though. This is still really cool. So I want to kind of cling to it a little bit. I don't want to let go of it yet. But then seeing that happen, then it just kind of spiraled into, I was getting more lost. I was trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? This lifestyle is great to the senses, right? In a way of giving me a little bit of a high that way of always being on the highlight. And as scary as it was, I realized that we can't keep doing this. And then friends, were shot and killed.
Oh.
And so that was a real eye opener, because we had always kind of escaped danger, right? And sort of it's kind of that wild side of like, wow, this is a thrill. We just got out of this situation, and whoa, I mean, that was scary, but at the same time, that was really cool. We're invincible, and so we adopted that kind of, okay, we can just play with fire, and we're going to be okay. We're going to get out of it, because it happened to us so many times. And then it got to a point where I was just like, I can't know that we're getting way too close. And then friends, dying, friend that was shot and killed, point blank, in his car. And I just seen him just that day, right before it happened. And that caused me to kind of reflect and say, wow, that could have been me. We could have been in that car with him, because we were always hanging out. And said, okay, no, it's okay. We're fine. Let's move on, and let's kind of, I don't know how to get out of this lifestyle. And even if you did, you were looked at as like, okay, why are you leaving? You're abandoning us. You're leaving us hanging.
Right.
And so when you get deep into that, then they start to, if you get out, then they'll come after you. And I was afraid of that too. But anyways, that happened. And then a couple more incidences with friends, getting beat up. And I remember one in particular that I don't share too often, but it was a pivotal moment when, I got into the party scene too, and doing rave parties. So I kind of said, oh, I'm going to do the step between a little bit of the gangs, and then do the rave stuff. And they kind of mix the two worlds together. And so I thought, well, that one's kind of safer, but I still want to have my foot in this, because it's kind of dangerous. And I wanted to, for whatever reason, still wanted to be tied to that. And then I remember, anyways, I was holding the money we'd always gather the money for these parties, and we do them in warehouses that were illegal, so the cops wouldn't find it. And then, so we're always running from the cops, with that kind of stuff. And I had this money, and I told my wife this the other day, I was at a Tommy Burger. It was a famous burger joint in California, and we'd always hang out there, and we would get maps to people to the warehouses to say, here, go to this one, because the cops know where this one is. And so I had all this money, and we were driving home with two of my friends, and then all of a sudden a car pulls up on the side, some gang members, and started flashing their signs and telling us to pull over. And so whenever they do that, what happens is they run you off the road, and then they just get out and shoot you and kill you. And so that's what was going through my mind, is like, oh my gosh, these were, and it was probably 3-4 in the morning. There was nobody on the road. And it just seemed like, I just looked around and thought, oh, we're going to die. There's nobody here to protect us. And it was my friend, Raul, and my other friend, Maurice, in the back. I was in the passenger seat, and they were throwing bottles at us, and we were just didn't know what to do. And then he had a stick shift, or a manual, 69 bug, I think it was, which was marked from another gang member. And so they saw that and said, okay, that's so-and-so. And so anyways, they were throwing bottles at us. And then I don't know, I went blank, and I just kind of put my head down just to pray. And then everything just went white, because I thought we were gone. Then I got up, I looked, and we saw a cop, I don't know how many yards in front of us. And we were trying to get his attention. And then all of a sudden the cop turns, and he's gone, and there's nobody on the road. So we're thinking, okay, this is it. So I went down, I prayed, and I felt this impression, to duck down. And thankfully I did, because a bullet had gone over our heads, and my friend was just kind of tucked in, trying to drive and keep his head down. And then so the glass shattered on the passenger side, and there's glass on my head. I didn't know it at the time. It was happening so fast. And then that was it. So I just prayed, and again, everything went white. I remember that, and just thinking, okay, I guess this is what's going to happen. I accepted it, and I surrendered. And then got up and looked around, and the car was gone.
Wow.
And there's no streets, we're like, where did they turn? Where'd they go? it was just the oddest thing. To this day, I don't know what exactly happened, but they were gone. And then he was able to get into second, third gear, drive to a taco shop where we always hung out. And then we just kind of were in shock, and he drove me home, and I sat in my bed, didn't go to sleep. And I just laid there, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. This is too close. This is too much.
Yeah.
So that was a pivotal moment. And then my mom coming in, real and not knowing exactly what I was doing. And they were just kind of praying, I don't know what he's doing, but we're just going to try to help him. And I didn't want the help. And then serving a mission, 2-year mission for the LDS church, was a thing that my mom always pushed on me and just nagged me with the point where I got annoyed and said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go for 2 years and do that. I mean, yeah, when I was little, that's what I wanted to do, but she persisted and went to our bishop, at the time, and told him, hey, I think my son wants to serve a mission. And he pulls me aside and gives me the papers to fill out. And I said, what's this? He's like, well, your mom says you want to serve a mission. I said, what? No, there's no way. I'm not doing that, and he's like, well, just hang on to this. Okay. Pray about it. And so that a month went by, and he was expecting that. But anyways, in that month, I had another friend that had passed away, was shot and killed. And then I remember going to a party, and there were shootings, going on there. And then anyways, all those events just happened where I said, that's it. God's telling me I got to do this. I don't know why I'm going to do this, but I know I've got some beliefs there that I still held on to. And I don't know why I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And so I filled out the papers, got it all in. And then I ended up, serving a 2-year mission for the church. And even got out there and didn't know what I was doing until I had some experiences happen, and just cut everything off, cut all ties to the world, to dedicate to that, to my religion for that, and helping people and serving people. And that shifted things dramatically. So prior to that, with all those events happening, and then serving my mission for 2 years, those are life-changing events. Absolutely. That made a huge difference.
It sounds, and I can relate to some of what you're saying. It's divine intervention that pulled you out, I would think. And
yes, I believe that.
Yeah. And when your life I've had that life flashing moment as well. And it is interesting how time stands still. You're aware of what's happening, but you really are in a different place. Kind of. It's so hard to describe, isn't it? Where you're there, but you're floating, but you're not really, aware of everything. And it's amazing how that guidance pops in just when you need it. And it's because we haven't been paying attention enough to the wake up calls that you need a really good one sometimes. And it sounds like that's what you had. And, thank goodness and thank God that you had that background that you did, that was a good basis for you. And
absolutely.
And going to serve. Where did you go, Damon? Do you mind? Can you tell us where you went?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I went to Hartford, Connecticut, Spanish speaking. So I had to learn a new, LA, of course, I knew the street Spanish, right? But yeah, I went at Spanish speaking out to Hartford, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and just worked with the people out there.
That's fantastic.
So for 2 years.
And how did you feel when you came back home?
Oh, I mean, it all made sense, right? All the stuff that I learned when I was a kid, it all just kind of came to, and I had a deeper belief in God and a stronger connection, and a willingness to serve and help people at that level. And so I felt good. I felt very confident. I felt like I can conquer the world. I was ready to go to college, and I didn't do too well in high school. I mean, I was hardly ever there, so I barely graduated with a 2.1. I think here in the States, that's where they're really, really bad. I mean, I barely made it. went to 2 different high schools, it's got into some trouble there, but yeah, that was, yeah, those are some interesting, events here that happened at that point. So,
Do you feel like
um,
the mission gave you a sense of belonging? And is that sense of belonging something that you were lacking the entire time?
yes, it did. And a sense of, this is what it's all about, right? It's not about you, it's about the people you're going to serve. Yeah. So I think just really the meaning of service, and getting outside of yourself to help people and serve, that awareness of that really strengthened and gave me a sense of, I can help people at this level. And that led to coaching, right? And in my career and what I'm doing now, to say that really gives me a deeper sense of fulfillment. I didn't word it that way at the time. I'm seeing it now, 20 somewhat years later, saying, oh, that's what it was, just so a sense of belonging, like you mentioned. I think maybe that was part of it too. I belong to something important. I belong to a cause that's important, to serve people and bring them to know who they truly are.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned a lot of my mission, and then carrying that over into when I was off my mission to, leading to, again, going to college and really excelling there. So doing a 180 with how I approach life and how serious I took it now. I didn't want to take it for granted. Went in with more humility, more gratitude. And that had led to, again, something I've always wanted and dreamed of and set as my goal since I was little, is being a father, being a husband, and going through the whole dating scene, and all that, and then eventually leading to doing sales and door-to-door sales, where I met my wife, not knocking on her door, although I wish I could say that.
That'd make
It's
a
one of our
great
jokes is,
story.
I know, I said I wish I could say it, but I'm not gonna tell the truth. I'm not gonna embellish it, and but she did. We met in a church ward down there, and so that, and she's the greatest blessing in my life, with all the great things I feel that happen. I mean, she's definitely the greatest. And that's, anyways, that carried over into marriage, and then, but I still didn't fully process, I think, and maybe we'll talk about this later, but just the process all the other stuff that I sort of, I mean, I felt like I made I obviously I did make progress enough to move on, right? And excel in other things and get married and have a family. But then later on, having that stuff sort of circle back in a different way, where I didn't really fully process it yet at the time. Maybe I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of hit me a couple of years ago. Another event, that had happened, um, that kind of knocked some sense into me, to now, 20 years later, I'm asking myself, well, why is this coming back 20 years later or more? And then learning in the last 2 years since this event happened, okay, then there's more to learn from this. A lot of that stuff that I sort of buried or set aside would come back in a different way, that now
Absolutely.
I'm working through now, so,
I think it's
but it gave me a
really,
basis though.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry to interrupt, but I really think it's important that we process those events, because it's like you say, if you don't deal with them or put them in their proper perspective and place, they will come back.
Hmm.
And yet maybe even there's still that lesson we haven't completely learned,
Yeah.
that they come back and they're there for a reason. I think they're great teaching tools, honestly.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
it's a blessing in some way, but a curse in another way, because you think you've
Hmm.
got it dealt with and okay, I don't have to ever look at that again, or whatever the case may be, but there it is. And it just kind of sits there and nags at you. But when you understand the meaning behind it and what it's there for, it can be such a blessing, really.
Hmm.
And you and I both
Absolutely.
have gone through those things where, we think we've got it dealt with, but nope, not completely. So it
Yeah.
comes back, and it's really, I look at them like as new awakenings almost,
Hmm.
because you come out from those events a lot stronger and more stable in your convictions and who you are.
Yeah.
Like, self is important, absolutely, don't get me wrong. We as a self is important, but when you talk about serving others, that's just absolutely equally as important as knowing who you are. And we aren't always given these blessings to know or to understand the process that we've been given. But
Yeah.
it's interesting when we do the work, and that's what coaching is all about, is it not, Damon? Doing the work,
It
right?
is constant every day.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen your family, I've talked to your wife, and they are all blessings, and they're just absolutely beautiful people, and
Yeah,
congratulations
thank
on
you.
that. You've
Thank
been
you.
blessed. So
Yes, I have been.
is there one thought that you would like to leave the listeners with today, if they're struggling, maybe stuck in the same situation you were? What one piece of advice would you give them to be able to help?
Yeah, good question.
Nothing like putting you on the spot,
Really,
right?
yeah, I love it. I love it. This is going to challenge me here. Because my mind tends to go into so many different directions. So I'm going to compile it into, I think it's the journey of self-discovery and finding out who you really are. I mean, so go inward, when these things happen, just embrace it, embrace the struggle, embrace it, and learn from it. That's where you develop some, again, I use the word resiliency, is because we are going to get knocked down. We are going to go through our struggles, and it's in that embracing of that struggle and questioning it, saying, okay, let's step back and see what I can learn from this. So embrace the struggle. I learned that from a great mentor of mine too. And actually it was I went to Brendan Burchard's event, and that's where I learned that. Is great, mentor to me, to say, he said, embrace the suck.
I
Why would
could
I embrace the suck?
I could just imagine him saying that too. That's
Yeah. Use that word, right? Embrace the suck, or the struggle. And I said, okay, I got to figure that one out, because that's contradictory to what we're conditioned to think, right? I want to push it away and we don't want to feel it. But it was embrace it and learn from it. And that allows that vulnerability to go deeper within and discover who you truly authentically are.
Yeah.
And so embrace that. Just there you can see your, whatever those core beliefs are that you had, that you held on to, that you felt were right to you. Have those anchors, have those pillars, and those things. So when the storms come or the winds hit, you have something to kind of grab onto, that is true to your authentic self and your core beliefs. And that gives you so much comfort knowing that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's easy. It just knows, after the storm has passed, I've held on to that. And now I'm dusting myself off. And that's part of resiliency, right? Is dust myself off quickly, recover quickly. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. It happened. Okay, now what are we going to do?
Yeah.
To learn from it and get back on our feet and say, okay, I'm ready to charge forward. Not deny that it didn't happen, but just say it happened. So what do I want to learn from this? How do I want to grow from it? And then just just enjoying the journey of that discovery of what that is.
Yeah.
And basking in it, embracing it, meaning doesn't mean I identify with it as I agree with it. It just means I embrace it because I'm learning from it. And in doing that, I can learn to transcend it and not let it be who I am, because it isn't.
Exactly. And a friend of mine and someone you work with has always said to me, trust in the process, right?
Yes, that's another one. Yeah. I hear it a million
That's
times.
absolutely. And I have to add my favorite one to that too, is your past does not define your present or your future.
Yes.
And we all have the choices that we need to make. And
Mm-hmm.
Damon, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, and I hope some of the listeners will get in touch with you after this, how could they do that?
Just through any of the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and so feel free to message me if you want. On that, I'm not on it too often, but enough to where I'll see that and I'll get back to you. And yeah, I'd love to help in any way I can, or questions that anyone has. Particularly right now, as I mentioned to you, what I'm working on with writings is just as I've gone through all that, a lot of the parents that may struggle with, and my wife and I are still learning the struggles of teenagers today, but we're passionate about having an impact, in that area, and navigating kind of parents through that, and just like you said, trusting the process and having faith in that. But anyways, yeah, if they want to get a hold of me and to talk through some of those things, give them some insight, and I can learn from them too, then yeah, Instagram and Facebook. My name's pretty. I think I'm the only Damon Casabar out there, so you'll find me pretty easily.
Absolutely.
on
And if
any of those
not, if you
platforms.
can't find me, just contact me and I would be happy to put them in touch with
Yeah,
you. It's
yeah,
all the way around. So, Damon, I thank you so much for this. I really do. And I appreciate your wisdom and your ability to share what your story was. And it's a
sure.
beautiful journey. So thank you very much for doing that for us. I appreciate you.
No,
And
thank you. Appreciate you as well.
oh, thank you. And listeners, if you would like to learn more about Damon, please get in touch. And like he says, he's all over social media, so you can find out who he is. And if you're interested in finding out more about me as a coach or as a speaker or an author, get in touch with me as well. I'm Teresa Sims, and you can find me easily all over social media as well. So thank you for listening to Powering Through Life, and we will be in touch with you soon.
That brings to a close another great, inspiring interview on Powering Through Life. Thank you to my incredible guest for sharing your thoughts and wisdoms with our listeners. If you would like to connect with us, go to www.teresasims.com. And there you will also find all the previous segments from many amazing and inspiring people. Remember, don't be shy. Reach out if you have any questions, or just leave me a comment. So thank you once again for listening to Powering Through Life.